$7,000, the replacement of Social Security. I have all the details and what you need to know right here in the video, so let's get right into it. I know in this video, I do want to share with you the details of a new concept going around where they're now discussing $7,000 and how this new program could potentially replace Social Security at some point in the future. Let's get into it and talk through the details. Also, thank you so much for hitting the like button on this video and, of course, sharing this video with your friends, family, and social media so we can reach as many people as we possibly can and keep everybody informed of what is actually going on as things are changing very rapidly. Thanks again. Let's get into it and talk about this new concept of $7,000 and how this $7,000 could turn into $1 million. Yeah, wow, let's get into it and talk through this. Now, first off, if you've been watching the videos here on the channel for any length of time now, you know that I've been talking about Social Security and all of these fixed income benefits administered by the Social Security Administration for well over 3 years. I have thousands and thousands of videos right here on the channel talking exactly about these topics. Now, as of recently, maybe over the last 6 or 9 months or so, I've been out in a couple different videos saying I would not be surprised one bit to see Social Security replaced at some point in the future. Which, by the way, when I say future, I mean like 15, 20, 25, 30 years from right now. Social Security is not going anywhere anytime soon. It'll be around for a very long time. However, considering the financial issues that Social Security does have and continues to have, I wouldn't be shocked at some point way out in the future to see it replaced. Now, again, I've been saying that for a little while now. However, let's talk through the details of this new concept that is now floating around, the $7,000 and how they plan on turning it into $1 million per beneficiary. Yeah, sounds incredible, right? I agree. Sounds good. Tell me how. I want to turn $7,000 into $1 million. Sounds good to me. I think everybody else here probably wants to do the same. All right, so here's what they're now saying, which, by the way, there's also a pretty big, influential person backing this up as well. I'll tell you the name. Bill Ackman. Maybe that name does not ring a bell. I'll tell you this much. He's a billionaire and a manager of a huge hedge fund, okay? He manages billions and billions of dollars. However, more on him in just a minute. All right, so here's what they're now suggesting. Oh, by the way, I would love to hear your comments down below on this. Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think it's garbage? Should we, throw it in the garbage pile? Should we burn it? What do you say? I would love to hear your comments down below. But here is what they are now suggesting. They're thinking that the federal government should set up a program that at birth, okay, so the time that the baby is born, okay, the government sets up an account with $7,000 per baby when they're born, okay? Now, stick with me for a second because this is kind of interesting, okay? They're suggesting the federal government set up this program where at birth, the baby automatically gets $7,000 of money from the government, okay? This $7,000 is invested into index funds in the stock market, okay? So it's invested into the stock market. And then when this person turns 65, that $7,000 has now turned into $1 million. Incredible, right? So 65 years later, they now have $1 million sitting there because of the $7,000 initial investment into index funds, averaging about an 8% return, compounded over 65 years, has now turned into $1 million. I don't know, sounds like pretty nice to me, right? However, I do have a couple questions about all of this. First off, sounds like a pretty cool idea, which, by the way, Bill Ackman, the name that I just threw out there a minute ago, he indicated this would cost the federal government $20 billion a year, which, by the way, $20 billion to the federal government is nothing, literally nothing to them. They couldn't care less about $20 billion. I mean, maybe they'll act like they care about it. $20 billion to the federal government is pennies, okay? That's nothing. They don't even flinch over $20 billion, okay? So, but the point out of Bill Ackman is that this would cost nothing, $20 billion, and it would set people up for a lot more money in retirement. Okay, now let me talk about this a little bit further here because this is what they're suggesting, and again, obviously this would be way out into the future, but this is something that they've been talking about for a while now. However, let me throw this out there really fast here. Here's my questions about this. Okay, so they get $7,000 at birth. It's invested in index funds. Great. Accumulating 8% per year, compounded over long periods of time, creates $1 million. However, okay, let's just say that they implemented this today. Now, obviously, they're not going to implement this today. I'm just saying. Let's just, in theory, say they implement today. 65 years from right now. Do you think the purchasing power of $1 is going to be the same as what it is today? I'm going to go ahead and say no, not a chance. In fact, I would bet in 65 years, dollars won't even exist anymore, okay? It's going to be replaced by digital currency. We already know this. We're pretty much on the cusp of this happening. Dollars are not even going to be a thing in 65 years. But again, that's just what I'm throwing out there really fast here. Next, I want to throw this out there as well. $1 million in 65 years. Is that going to have the same value as what $1 million does today? The answer is not even close. $1 million today is very different than $1 million in 65 years. Let me give you a quick example. How many of us watched the classic show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Remember that one? I mean, let's be real for a second. We all watched it, right? Okay, when did that show start? I don't know, maybe 1999 or something like that. I don't know the exact year, but it was around that time. I was... I was early on in high school during that time. I remember we'd all go to school. Who watched Who Wants to Be a Millionaire last night? Did you see he won $1 million? Do you remember that? Anyway, my point is, remember that back in 1999 or thereabout, right around that time when that show started, $1 million was like huge money, right? Do you remember the first guy that won the $1 million? He didn't even use a lifeline. He ended up calling, I think it was his dad, to say, hey, Dad, I don't need your help, but I'm calling you to tell you I'm about to win the $1 million. Do you remember that? I remember it. I was like, I don't know, 14 or 15 or something at that time. Maybe, I don't know, 15 or 16, something like that. Around that time, I remember that so vividly, watching it. Wow, he's going to win it, right? And then he did. Anyway, my point is, back then, say 23, 24 years ago, $1 million was like, wow, this guy is loaded. This guy's super rich, right? Like, can I send him a letter asking him for some money or what's going on here? That was back 23, 24 years ago. $1 million then is very different than what $1 million is today. Don't get me wrong. I'm not discounting $1 million, but $1 million, honestly, doesn't get you much anymore, okay? Now, don't get me wrong. Again, I just said it. $1 million, we would all be very happy with $1 million. But $1 million today is more like $500,000, maybe $600,000. That's about what it is, okay? So my point is, the purchasing power of money depletes rapidly over time, okay? So over the last, say, 23, 24 years, that same $1 million that guy won from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is maybe worth $500,000 today. Maybe $500,000. That's about it, okay? It depletes very fast, okay? So now let's think 65 years from right now. Is that same $1 million going to have the same value? Not a chance. It's not going to be anywhere close to the value of that, in 65 years. The next question I have is this. How much of that is going to be taxable, okay? Let's not be ignorant for a second. We all know how this works. If you're sitting with $1 million, are you just going to be able to skate right on by? Not a chance. The government is going to say, excuse me, you owe like 30% of that to us because that's the rule that we made, and now we're going to force you to pay it, okay? So just because they set this up, they give you $7,000, it accumulates over long periods of time, and 65 rolls around, somebody has $1 million. They want to tap into that million, and they want to start living their retirement and living life well, right? Are they just going to get right on by and just no taxes? Not a chance. There's going to be taxes on top of that. So this is incredibly misleading to say that, oh, we're going to invest $7,000, no strings attached, $7,000 at birth, and 65 years later, you'll have $1 million. Okay, fine. But how much do you really get at the end of the day? Considering in the depletion of purchasing power, as in basically the depletion of the US dollar and what it's worth, the value of the dollar, and then taking into consideration taxes and all of that business, how much will you really have left? And what can you really get? At that point, maybe you're sitting with, after 30% is reduced because of taxes, or realistically probably more than that because taxes are only going to go up over time. 65 years from right now, taxes will be significantly higher, okay? I think we can all realize that. Taxes are not going down, they only go up, right? It's a one-way street with taxes. Anyway, so 65 years, the $1 million may be reduced by, say, 30, 35%, 40% from taxes. Now you're sitting with maybe $600,000 to $700,000. What can you get with that? Probably not much, because the depletion of the the depletion of the dollar has extended so much that now this $600,000, maybe $700,000 is probably the equivalent of about $200,000 today. Get what I'm saying? Maybe $150,000 today. Okay, so my point is, yep, it all sounds good in theory. This would be a cool thing, but at the end of the day, it's not going to do much, right? Don't get me wrong, $150,000, $200,000, $100,000, I think we'd all be very happy these days with that, right? I think all of us could do a lot of good with that. mostly improving our own situations, maybe helping out some friends and family, doing whatever, paying down some debt, whatever it happens to be. But you get my point, right? So, nice concept, but I don't know about this one, okay? And just for all the reasons that I stated here. However, it would certainly make people feel good to say, wow, we're going to give you $7,000 at birth, and you're going to be a millionaire at 65. But again, that's just, it all comes in context, right? It's all in relative terms. So anyway, interesting concept, right? So I'd love to hear your comments down below. Do you think this is a great idea? Do you think this is something they should throw into the incinerator immediately and say, no, get that out of here, we're not interested? Or what are your ideas going forward? Like I said, this is just another one that's floating around out there. There's a lot of different ideas. I've talked about some of them before, where even some of the lawmakers are now recognizing we might need to find a replacement for Social Security at some point in the relatively near future, because that is the trajectory of this. Whereas Social Security, the problems, as in the financial issues, we've been hearing about it for decades, right? But here's the thing. The labor participation rate, as in less people working today than what they were back in, say, 1950 or so, there's only about 2.8 people right now supporting each Social Security retiree. Is that a formula for success? No, that's not going to work. It just doesn't work. There's not enough money coming in because not enough people are working, paying in through Social Security payroll taxes to make sure that Social Security is funded for long periods of time to make sure that retirees are still getting all the money that they're promised, right? Anyway, I could go on and on with this for a very long time, but let's leave it there for now. I can always come back in a follow-up video if you'd like me to. I'd love to see your comments down below. Do you like this idea? Do you not like it? What are your thoughts on this? Anyway, pretty interesting stuff out there, right? I'll keep you posted with any further ideas. Please make sure to subscribe down below. Share the video with your friends, family, social media. Go back and check out any of the other thousands of videos here on the channel. Until next time, enjoy your day, take care, and catch you again later.